Hello and welcome back to Scripture Impact Broadcast. We are committed to helping you stay glued to the Word of God. And it's all real talk again on today's episode. So grab your to go drink, settle in, and tune out the distractions for a while while we step into Genesis chapter 15. And believe me, there's a lot ahead that you definitely would not like to miss. At some point down the road, God showed up in Abram's vision and basically told him, "Hey, don't be afraid. I am your protector and I've got a great reward lined up for you." But Abram, honest as ever, said, "Lord, what's the use of all these blessings if I don't even have a son to inherit them?" And then God calmly and clearly explained to him, letting him know that he needed to trust him because he's not going to hand over everything to a servant, but he was going to have a son of his own. Let's dive deeper into the story.
Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great. O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? Since you've given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir." Then the Lord said to him, "No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir."
So God took Abraham outside, one night, pointed to the endless sky and said, "Try counting those stars. That's how big your family is going to be." Abraham actually believed him. Of course, he had to, and God gave him credit for that faith, like serious spiritual points. But then Abraham, still very human, looked around and basically said, "Okay, Lord, I actually love the vision, but how can I be sure that this land is really mine? How can I be sure?" Let me take you straight into the full story.
Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, "Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have." And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Then the Lord told him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess it?" The Lord told him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." So Abram presented all these to him and killed them. Then he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half.
Now, Abram had just finished preparing his offering when he found himself swatting away vultures. Yeah, even in sacred moments, the birds don't wait. Mhm. As evening fell, he drifted into a heavy sleep, and that was when he got deep because God showed up with a vision about the future. And in that vision, it turns out that Abraham's descendants would face a long season of struggle. But God made it very clear that justice will come, wealth will follow, and even Abraham himself will rest peacefully after a full life. Hmm. The story about this moment is coming soon.
Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. Then the Lord said to Abram, "You can be sure that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land, where they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, and in the end they will come away with great wealth. As for you, you will die in peace and be buried at a ripe old age."
Darkness wrapped around the land. Abraham witnessed something unforgettable. He witnessed God's presence move through the sacrifice like a blazing torch in the night. That night, God actually sealed the deal with a covenant. He's a covenant keeping God, of course, handing over a massive stretch of land to Abraham's future descendants. Now, though at the point it was still home for many nations, but God made it very clear that if He has spoken, He has spoken. It was already spoken for, and it's almost, in fact, it's a done deal. Now is a good time to relax and watch what happens next.
After 4 generations, your descendants will return here to this land. For the sins of the Amorites do not yet warrant their destruction. After the sun went down and darkness fell, Abram saw a smoking firepot and a flaming torch pass between the halves of the carcasses. So the Lord made a covenant with Abram that day and said, I have given this land to your descendants, from the border of Egypt to the great Euphrates River, the land now occupied by the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, and Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites.
Thanks for sticking with me through Genesis chapter 15. Oops. I hope you're blessed. Now, this is a very powerful chapter because we saw how Abraham wrestled with doubts, just like we do. He asked so many honest questions, but then he still chose to believe God's promise. And that's the big lesson here because, faith doesn't mean that, we have all the answers that we needed or that we need. It just means that we're trusting God even when the future looks unclear. And in return, God didn't just reassure Abraham. He made a covenant, a binding promise showing that he takes our faith seriously, even when it feels so small. So if you are in a season of waiting or wondering, I want you to remember that God sees your questions. He honors your faith. And, is always working on a plan that is bigger than you can ever imagine. So join me again in the next episode for even more adventurous encounter in Genesis chapter 16. I am Enuma. Have a blessed day.